These trucks, these were different. Some were designed with loopholes. Others were experiments. All of them weird, rare, and nearly forgotten. So let's go back in time. This is a countdown of the 20 rarest and weirdest pickups you never knew about. Number 20, 1957 Chevrolet Cameo Carrier. Long before trucks became luxury items, the Chevy Cameo dared to add style to a workhorse. Released in 1955 and running through 1958, the 1957 model marked peak weirdness for the Cameo line. It had full fiberglass rear fenders molded into steel bedsides, giving it sleek car-like lines. A radical departure from the rough-cut pickups of the era. It wasn't just about looks. You could spec it with a V8, a 4-speed, and even two-tone paint. Inside, it had carpeting, a radio, and chrome trim. This was GM's idea of classing up the truck world, and it confused people. Farmers didn't want to scratch it. Commuters didn't want a truck. It sat awkwardly between two markets that didn't yet exist. Today, the 1957 Cameo is a collector's oddball. It was too pretty for its time, too early for the luxury truck boom, and too rare to ignore. Only around 2,200 were made that year. Chevy was busy dressing up its pickup, while Dodge was busy chopping the whole thing down. Number 19, 1961, Dodge Sweepline D100 Custom Sports Special. The 1961 Dodge D100 Custom Sports Special was a wild gamble. Take a utilitarian pickup, lower it, throw bucket seats in it, bolt on a factory tachometer, then offer it with a long bed and a 426 max wedge if the customer knew how to check the right boxes. On the outside, it looked mostly tame until you spotted the full-length chrome moldings and flashy two-tone options. Inside, sporty vinyl buckets and car-style trim. But the big twist was Dodge's offer of high-performance engines. The optional Max Wedge V8 turned it from an oddball into a full-blown muscle truck. Years before that term even existed, very few buyers ticked all the performance boxes. Most people were baffled by the truck's identity crisis. Was it a show car, a drag racer, a work rig? Turns out it was all three, and that confused the market. Fewer than 1,000 were made with the full sports special package. Even fewer survive. It was a bizarre precursor to the muscle truck scene of the 90s. But in the early 60s, it was just weird. And while Dodge was building hot rods in disguise, Jeep was making trucks that looked like they belonged in sci-fi movies. Number 18, 1962, Jeep FC 170. The Jeep Forward Control Series looked more like industrial forklifts than pickups, and that was exactly the point. The FC 170, introduced in 1957 but refined in 1962, featured a cab-over-engine design that placed the driver directly above the front axle. No hood, no nose, just glass, steel, and mechanical noise right beneath your feet. It had a narrow stance, short wheelbase, and a flat face that gave it cartoonish proportions. Power came from a 3.7-liter inline-six, making about 105 horsepower. Four-wheel drive was standard, and it could crawl up rock faces most trucks avoided. It wasn't fast. It wasn't comfortable, but it was oddly capable. Jeep sold them to the military, forest services, and even municipalities as snowplows and fire trucks. They were weird, functional, barely street legal in some states, but in the right hands, nearly unstoppable. Most were worked to death. Today, finding one that isn't rusted through is a miracle. But when you do, it's a conversation piece that'll climb boulders. Of course, Jeep wasn't the only one trying to turn heads. A few years later, Volkswagen took their iconic Beetle, added a bed, and confused everyone. Number 17, 1971. Volkswagen Type 2 single cab pickup. The Type 2 single cab pickup wasn't new in 1971, but this was the last year before it got upgraded with a more modern, less lovable design. Built on the VW bus platform, it featured a cab-forward layout, air-cooled flat-4 engine in the back, and a fold-down three-way bed. Yes, all three sides could open flat like a picnic table. It had around 60 horsepower. Maybe, but it didn't need more. It wasn't built to race. It was built to haul surfboards, tools, and good vibes. Some versions even had a small treasure chest storage compartment under the bed, accessible from outside the truck. It was weird in the best way. Slow, underpowered, and full of soul. You could drive it with flip-flops and never worry about going too fast. Today, it's one of the most beloved and expensive VW collectibles out there, especially in mint condition. By the mid-70s, oddball trucks were fading, but then Subaru decided it was time to bring the weirdness back, with jump seats, a tiny engine, and a legal loophole that sparked controversy across U.S. ports. Number 16, 1978 Subaru Brat. Most trucks avoid back seats. Subaru stuck two in the bed and called it innovation. The Subaru Brat, short for Bi-Drive Recreational All-Terrain Transporter, was Japan's response to U.S. tariffs on imported pickups. To dodge the infamous chicken tax, Subaru bolted two plastic seats into the cargo bed, called it a passenger car, and shipped it straight into American driveways. The result? A tiny four-wheel drive pickup with jump seats exposed to the elements. Its 1.6-liter flat four made about 67 horsepower, and it came with a manual transmission, dual-range four-wheel drive, and about as much safety as a lawn chair on a skateboard. But people loved it. It was quirky, agile, off-road capable, and fit in places traditional pickups couldn't. Plus, it had a weird charm you couldn't ignore. Ronald Reagan even owned one. Most Brats rusted away. Finding one today with original rear seats is rare. Finding one in pristine shape, that's museum-level territory. And while Subaru added seats to bypass tariffs, Dodge's next move involved ditching half the cab and all of the bed. Number 15, 1982 Dodge Rampage. What do you get when you cross a Dodge Omni with a wheelbarrow? The Dodge Rampage. This front-wheel drive unibody pickup was Dodge's attempt to tap into the growing compact truck market with something more creative. Launched in 1982, the Rampage shared its underpinnings with the Omni and Charger, came with a 2.2-liter inline four, making about 96 horsepower, and featured a tiny 4.5-foot bed, just big enough for a lawnmower, or maybe a medium-sized dog. It handled like a car, sat low to the ground, and weighed under 2,400 pounds. That made it reasonably efficient and surprisingly fun to drive. But it wasn't exactly a commercial hit. Most people didn't understand what they were looking at. Was it a car, a truck, a mistake? Today, the Rampage lives in obscurity, but for fans of weird front-wheel drive pickups, it's a gem, especially if you can find one with the optional Shelby Charger graphics package. Dodge's mini-truck experiment might have been short-lived, but the weirdest convertible pickup of the 80s was just about to arrive, with no roof, no shame, and zero competition. Dodge's mini-truck experiment might have been short-lived, but the weirdest convertible pickup of the 80s was just about to arrive, with no roof, no shame, and zero competition. Number 14, 1989 Dodge Dakota Convertible. Convertible, pickup, factory-built. You read that right. The 1989 Dodge Dakota Convertible was the only factory soft-top pickup sold in America in the modern era. Dodge partnered with American Sunroof Corporation to chop the roof off a standard Dakota Sport, add structural reinforcement, and bolt in a manual folding ragtop. The result? A drop-top mini-truck that looked like a concept car and drove like a breeze. It came with rear-wheel drive, bucket seats, and your choice of a 2.5-liter four-cylinder or a 3.9-liter V6. Manual transmission was standard, with an optional automatic. Most were brightly colored and optioned with sporty decals, alloy wheels, and roll bars that didn't actually do much. It was fun. It was strange. It made no sense. And that's why it's brilliant. Fewer than 4,000 were sold over 2 years before Dodge pulled the plug. Dealers didn't know how to market it. Buyers didn't know what to do with it. But collectors today, they're obsessed. Still with us after 6? Then you're exactly who we made this list for. Hit that like, subscribe, and stick around, because the next ones are even rarer. While Dodge was letting the wind in, Mazda was over in Japan quietly building a pickup with an engine nobody else dared to touch. Number 13, 1990, Mazda Rotary Pickup REPU. The Mazda Rotary Pickup, better known as the REPU, was an idea only Mazda could dream up. Take your compact B-Series truck, then yank out the piston engine and replace it with a 1.3-liter 13B rotary straight out of an RX-4. That tiny high-revving engine screamed to 7,000 RPM and made around 110 horsepower. Not impressive until you consider the truck weighed just 2,600 pounds. Paired with a 4-speed manual, it moved like a sports car with a bed. Not exactly torquey, but wild to drive. The REPU was only sold in North America between 1974 and 1977. But by 1990, clean examples were becoming unicorns. It was never mass-produced in high numbers, and emissions killed the rotary dream quickly. But Mazda's rotary truck remains one of the strangest performance pickups ever built. It came with flared fenders, a tachometer, and unique badging. Even the tailgate said rotary power. And today, that's exactly what draws collectors in. It was loud, it was different, and it was way too ahead of its time. But for those who loved it, nothing else compared. After Japan gave us rotary-powered risk-takers, America fired back with pure muscle. No fancy tech, no high-revving experiments, just a heavyweight punch packed into a short wheelbase pickup. What rolled out of Chevy's garage next wasn't built to impress engineers. It was built to roast tires. Number 12, 1991 Chevrolet 454 SS. Was one of those rare trucks that didn't just break the mold, it kicked it across the garage. Built on the GMT 400 platform, it paired a regular cab, short box body with a monstrous 7.4-liter V8. That's 454 cubic inches of pure old-school grunt. It made 255 horsepower and a massive 405 pound-feet of torque, all sent to the rear wheels through a 3-speed turbo-hydromatic transmission. No 4-wheel drive, no extended cab, just pure burnout-ready muscle. Chevy gave it sport suspension, quick ratio steering, and blacked out everything. The red interior was loud, the stance was aggressive, and the sound from the dual exhaust was unmistakable. It wasn't fast by today's standards, 0 to 60 in around 7.3 seconds. But back then, it was one of the baddest trucks on the street. It only came in black at first, and only around 17,000 were ever built during its short 1990 to 1993 run. Today, clean examples are climbing in value, especially with low miles. The 454 SS flexed its muscles. GMC, on the other hand, went surgical, with a turbocharged punch in a compact frame. Number 11, 1991 GMC Cyclone. It beat Ferraris in a drag race. Let that sink in. The 1991 GMC Cyclone was a pickup with no business being that fast. Built on the Sonoma platform, it packed a turbocharged 4.3-liter V6 with 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 4-speed automatic and all-wheel drive. The result? 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, quarter mile in 13.4. No truck had ever done that before, and none have since, at least not like this. It came only in black, had lowered suspension, 16-inch alloys, and a body kit that looked like it belonged on a tuner car, not a compact truck. It wasn't made for hauling. Payload capacity was laughable, but that didn't matter. This was a street weapon with a tailgate. GMC made just under 3,000 units, and they sold out instantly. Today, it's considered one of the most collectible modern pickups ever built. It made muscle car owners nervous. It made sports car guys furious. And it made GMC legendary. Now it's time for something a little stranger. The next truck brought quirks, curves, and more cabin than anyone asked for. Say hello to the 1993 Isuzu Space Cab. Number 10, 1993 Isuzu Space Cab pickup. At first glance, the 1993 Isuzu Space Cab looked like every other compact truck on the road, until you noticed the extra glass. The Space Cab was Isuzu's idea of stretching a 2-door pickup into something vaguely resembling a crew cab, without actually being one. Behind the front seat sat a shallow cargo shelf and two flip-down jump seats, good for exactly 0 adult passengers. But what it lacked in practicality, it made up for in charm. The dual-side windows and space bubble rear glass gave it a Star Trek vibe. It was like a truck trying to be a space shuttle, and failing in the most glorious way. Under the hood, you'd find a 2.6-liter inline-4 with just over 100 horsepower. Slow? Absolutely. But it got the job done. And the styling was unique enough that today, a clean space cab will always draw confused stares at Cars and Coffee. We're halfway there. Comment below with your favorite so far, or make a guess which car will take the #1 spot. Isuzu may have leaned into glass and jump seats, but Toyota's next move was all about under-the-hood madness, because they dropped a turbo diesel into a tiny truck and forgot to tell anyone it even existed. Number 9, 1994 Toyota Hilux Diesel Surf Pickup, JDM import. You won't find this one on any Toyota USA brochures. The 1994 Hilux Surf Pickup was a JDM exclusive variant based on the Hilux Surf SUV, a truck you probably know better as the precursor to the 4Runner. But in Japan, they made a Hilux Surf with a chopped rear, a short cab, and a 2.4-liter turbo diesel under the hood. It was quiet, efficient, and built like a tank. And while it was designed for the Japanese market, a few made their way to the US through gray market importers. What makes it weird? Everything. You got SUV-level comfort in a short bed, diesel-powered pickup with right-hand drive. It had power everything, a funky dash layout, and that unmistakable Japanese 90s charm. And yes, it could outlast most modern trucks on a bad day. It was never meant for American roads, which is exactly why collectors want them now. It's hard to find, weird to look at, and even weirder to register in most states. If Toyota was quietly building diesel oddballs overseas, Chevrolet was loudly releasing a retro-futuristic experiment with plastic panels and Pontiac DNA. Number 8, 2003 Chevrolet SSR. The Chevy SSR was a hot rod fantasy that somehow ended up in Chevy showrooms. SSR stood for Super Sport Roadster, and it was exactly that. A convertible, 2-seat, rear-wheel drive pickup built on a modified Trailblazer chassis. It had a retractable hard-top roof, flared fenders, and a bed lined with wooden carpet. Initially powered by a 5.3-liter V8 making 300 horsepower, later models got the Corvette-derived 6.0-liter LS2 with 390 horses, and the option of a 6-speed manual. That put it squarely in sports car territory, at least on paper. But it weighed over 4,700 pounds and handled like a muscle couch. Still, it was loud, flashy, and incredibly unique. Nothing else before or since has combined roadster and pickup quite like it. Most people didn't get it. Sales were weak. Production stopped after just 4 years. But now, SSRs are cult icons. Their weirdness is their value. And speaking of cult icons, our next truck wasn't built to be cool. It was built to survive. But somehow, it ended up being both. Number 7, 2006 Hummer H3T concept and 2009 production version. The Hummer H3T started as a concept that no one expected to become real. But by 2009, Hummer actually delivered and gave the world a mid-size pickup version of its military-inspired SUV. It was boxy, heavy, and massively over-engineered. Powered by a 3.7-liter inline-5 or an optional 5.3-liter V8, the H3T wasn't fast, but it was unstoppable. Full-time four-wheel drive, locking differentials, and serious off-road chops made it more capable than most larger trucks. And with a 5-foot bed, it could still haul real cargo. What made it weird was the timing. By 2009, GM was on the verge of bankruptcy, Hummer's image was tanking, and gas prices were through the roof. So they launched a fuel-hungry 4x4 pickup right into a recession. Sales were terrible, The H3T disappeared after just 1 year. But today, it's one of the rarest modern trucks you'll ever see. It's a symbol of excess, irony, and off-road excellence all rolled into one boxy body. If you thought launching a Hummer pickup during a recession was bold, the next truck took weird to a whole new continent, where a budget brand tried to blend a compact coupe, a utility bed, and rally car vibes into one strange little package. Number 6, 2010 Proton Arena Jumbuck. What do you get when a Malaysian automaker tries to build a utility coupe for Australians? You get the Proton Arena, also known as the Jumbuck. Based on the Proton Wira sedan, which itself borrowed Mitsubishi Lancer parts, the Jumbuck was a front-wheel drive unibody pickup that barely qualified as a truck. Released in the early 2000s and ending its run by 2010, the Arena came with a 1.5-liter engine, pushing around 85 horsepower. It had a payload of roughly 1,000 pounds, which was impressive considering it looked like a hatchback with a bed tacked on. But it wasn't really about utility. It was cheap, quirky, and different. Despite being mocked by motoring journalists for its awkward styling and buzzy drivetrain, the Arena found fans in rural Australia who needed a no-frills runabout. The plastic bedliner, side steps, and oversized mud flaps only added to its weird appeal. Today, very few survive outside Southeast Asia or Australia, but if you ever see one on the road, especially in Europe or North America, it's guaranteed to stop traffic. If you're still here, you're one of the few who really get it. The top 5, totally insane. Stick around, and don't forget to share this list with a fellow gearhead. So while Proton was building compact oddballs for farmers, Dodge was bringing back muscle in the strangest way possible. Number 5, 2005 Dodge Ram. The phrase world's fastest production truck doesn't usually start with 10 cylinders, but that's exactly what Dodge gave us with the Ram SRT-10. This thing was pure chaos. Dodge dropped the 8.3-liter V10 engine from the Viper into a regular cab Ram, producing 500 horsepower and 525 pound-feet of torque. It came with a 6-speed manual transmission, limited slip rear, sport suspension, and enough torque to burn rubber through 3 gears. It hit 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds, ran the quarter mile in the 13s, and topped out over 150 miles per hour. Figures unheard of for a full-size pickup in the early 2000s. There was also a quad cab version with an automatic transmission, but purists preferred the stick-shift standard cab. It was loud, aggressive, and utterly impractical. No one needed a Viper-powered truck, but that's exactly why Dodge built it. Only around 10,000 were made over 3 years. Fuel economy was a joke. Handling was dicey. But you didn't buy an SRT-10 to be sensible. You bought it to scare sports cars. If America had the Viper-powered SRT-10, Australia answered with something just as loud and twice as unhinged. The next truck wasn't built for hauling. It was built to humiliate even Ferraris on the freeway. Number 4, 2011 HSV Maloo R8, Australia. This might look like an El Camino for the 2010s, but it's a whole different beast. The HSV Maloo R8 was built by Holden Special Vehicles, Australia's in-house performance division, and it took the ute format to absurd new heights. Under the hood sat a 6.2-liter LS3 V8, making 425 horsepower, sent through a 6-speed manual to the rear wheels. It had sport suspension, Brembo brakes, and a 0 to 60 time of around 4.9 seconds. But this wasn't just about numbers, it was about attitude. The Maloo R8 looked mean. Flared fenders, dual exhaust, wide rubber, and inside, leather, tech, and serious race car vibes. But what made it so weird was that it was a performance car pretending to be a truck. It had a bed, sure, but no one was putting tools in it. It was never sold in the US, but a few have made their way over as imported curiosities. In Australia, it became a legend and one of the fastest utes ever built. HSV went full aggression, but Honda, they took a different route, aiming for comfort, curves, and crossover practicality. Number 3, 2012 Honda Ridgeline Sport. When the Honda Ridgeline debuted, it confused almost everyone. It wasn't body on frame, it wasn't rear-wheel drive, it didn't even look like a truck. But by 2012, the Ridgeline Sport had embraced its oddball status and leaned into it. Powered by a 3.5-liter V6 making 250 horsepower, the Ridgeline came with standard all-wheel drive, 4-wheel independent suspension, and a unibody frame. That meant car-like handling, excellent ride comfort, and almost no towing prowess compared to rivals. But Honda gave it a few tricks up its sleeve. There was the in-bed trunk, the dual-action tailgate that swung down and sideways, the integrated storage compartments, and clever cabin ergonomics. It was less about hauling gravel and more about hauling camping gear. The sport trim added blacked-out accents, 18-inch wheels, and a bit of style. Still, the Ridgeline wasn't for truck purists. It was for people who didn't like trucks, but wanted to own one anyway. Honda softened the edges. Then Volkswagen showed up with something even smaller, stranger, and built for South American streets. Meet the 2014 Saveiro Cross. Number 2, 2014 Volkswagen Saveiro Cross, South America. If the Subaru Brat and a VW Golf had a baby, it might look something like the Volkswagen Saveiro Cross. Built exclusively for South American markets, the Saveiro Cross was based on the Volkswagen Gol platform, a compact front-wheel drive hatchback. But VW gave it rugged styling, plastic cladding, raised suspension, roof rails, and a truck bed. It wasn't exactly off-road ready, but it looked the part. Under the hood, a 1.6-liter inline-4, making around 100 to 120 horsepower depending on the market. It came with a 5-speed manual, front disc brakes, and optional traction control. Nothing fancy, but it worked. And the interior, far more refined than you'd expect from a small utility truck. What made it weird wasn't the format, it was the region. This kind of coupe utility had vanished in North America decades ago, but in Brazil and Argentina, it was still going strong. The Saveiro Cross was practical, affordable, and surprisingly stylish for a budget hauler. Very few have made it to the US, and even fewer remain road legal here. But if you ever spot one, know this: it's a true unicorn. And speaking of unicorns, our final entry wasn't sold to the public, wasn't built in bulk, and might not even legally exist. Number 1, 2021 Tesla Cybertruck prototype early design. It was the meme, the punchline, the cracked glass heard around the world. Before the production version ever rolled out, Tesla shocked everyone with the 2021 Cybertruck prototype. This wasn't just weird, it was borderline science fiction. Sharp angles, stainless steel panels, no side mirrors, bulletproof glass, and a design that looked like it was rendered on a PlayStation 1. Specs were ambitious, up to 800 horsepower, a 0 to 60 time under 3 seconds, and over 14,000 pounds of towing capacity. But at that stage, nothing was final. It didn't have airbags. It didn't meet road safety standards. It didn't even have working windshield wipers. Still, Tesla took it on tour. Cities across America saw this electric wedge roll through traffic, leaving jaws on the pavement. Some called it brilliant, others called it broken. Either way, it got attention, a lot of it. Only a handful of those early prototypes were built, and none were sold to the public. Today, they're locked away, modified, or completely reworked for production. But if you ever see the original prototype, you're looking at the weirdest, rarest modern pickup ever conceived. So which one blew your mind? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more insane car history, wild machines, and forgotten automotive experiments, hit that subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you next time with even more madness on wheels.